Hi there! In this video we are going to take a look at Houdini's interface. We are going to learn how it is structured and how we can customize it according to our needs. If you open the software with the default configuration, you will get this screen. In case you'll get a different layout, go to the desktop drop-down menu located at the top and select Build. If the layout is still different, open again the desktop drop-down menu and select Reload Current Desktop. In the interface, you can see the viewport in light blue, some gray frames, many tabs with many icons on the top, and a timeline with play controls at the bottom. For these tutorials, to have a better visualization of the interface, I'm going to increase the size of the elements. For this purpose, in the menu on the top of the interface, I select Edit, then Preferences, and finally select General User Interface. In this window, in the Global UI scale, I'm going to increase the scale from 1 to 1.3. Depending on your monitor resolution and your site, you may also need to change this value. You may also need to change the icon size and layout option from normal to large, or even extra large, in case you have a higher DPI monitor. In my case, I'm going to leave the icon size and layout to the default value and just leave the change to the global UI scale. Now I click on Apply and accept to close the preference window. To see the changes, it's necessary to restart Houdini. So I close the application by going to the File menu and selecting Quit Application. On the Quit window, I click on Discard and Quit. Now I restart Houdini. The console shows that the new icons are being generated. We can close the console and now we can see the interface elements a little better. In Houdini, the organization and layout of the interface elements are called the desktop. In other applications, this organization is also known as the workspace. But how can we quickly make sense of all these elements? Well, as the saying goes, divide and conquer. Let's use this strategy by going from the general to the specific. This is certainly the best approach. So let's divide the interface into its main components. In the main panel we find 5 independent sections: the menu bar, the shelf dock, the panes, the playbar, and the status line. Let's quickly explore these sections. The menu bar provides quick access to common functionalities. In the File menu, we manage files and projects. In the Edit menu, we set preferences. In the Render menu, we manage renders and previews. In the Asset menu, we manage digital assets. In the Windows menu, we quickly create floating panels with specific information. In the Help menu, we find help content. Then we have a drop-down for the desktop presets. It provides quick access to the desktop presets and also the option to manage the desktops. Now we have a drop-down for the radial menu presets. It provides quick access to the presets for the radial menus in the 3D view. At the right of this section we have a drop-down menu for the takes. And finally we have the Toggle Help button. It displays the help content docked in the program interface. The shelf dock contains a large array of useful tools for working interactively in the scene view. In this configuration, there are 2 shelves docked horizontally, and each shelf has a set of tabs, each one containing many tools. Let's quickly explore these tabs. Tools on the Create tab let you create and place primitives, curves, and null objects in the scene view. Tools on the Modify tab let you easily customize objects in the scene view. Tools on the Model tab let you edit objects in the scene view. Tools on the Polygon tab let you modify polygons in the scene view. Tools on the Deform tab let you deform objects in the scene view. Tools on the Texture tab let you texture objects in the scene view. The Rigging tab contains tools for creating pre-made rigs. The Muscle tab contains tools for creating muscles. Tools on the Character tab let you create characters in the scene view. Tools on the Constraints tab create a constraint network where you can constrain objects to each other in the scene view. Tools on the Hair Utils tab let you quickly set up hair and fur on objects. Tools on the Guide Process tab let you influence the placement and orientation of guides' hairs by painting skin attributes. Tools on the Grooming tab let you add and directly manipulate hair. Tools on the Terrain Effects tab contains tools for creating different types of terrains. The Cloud Effects tab contains tools for creating cloud effects. The Volume tab contains tools for creating volume effects. Tools on the Lights and Cameras tab let you create and place lights and cameras in the scene view. Tools on the Collisions tab let you create collisions objects in the scene view. Tools on the Particles tab let you create dynamic particle simulations. The Grains tab contains tools for simulating grains of sand and other granular matter. The Vellum tab contains tools for creating different types of vellum effects. Tools on the Rigid Body tab lets you create dynamic RBD objects in the scene view. Tools on the Particle Fluids tab let you create particle-based liquids in the scene view. Viscous fluids are flip simulations that use a temperature attribute to drive viscosity. The Oceans tab contains tools for creating ocean simulations. The Fluid Containers tab contains tools for creating pyro and smoke containers. The Populate Containers tab contains tools for creating and removing fire, smoke, and liquid. The Container Tools tab contains tools for manipulating fire, smoke, and liquid. Tools on the Pyro Effects tab lets you create simulated smoke and fire effects. Tools on the Solid or FEM tab let you create and modify solid objects. Tools on the Wires tab let you create flexible dynamic objects in the scene view. The Crowds tab contains tools for creating crowds, crowd behaviors, as well as examples. Tools on the Drive Simulation tab let you manipulate dynamic objects in the scene view. In the third section for this default configuration, we have 3 panes, and each pane contains several tabs. Let's quickly explore these tabs. In the left pane we have the Scene Viewer is where you display your objects in different modes, and you also select, modify, edit, and transform the geometry. The Animation Editor displays animation data in graph, dopsheet, or table format. Of course, you can edit and modify all this information. The Render Viewer outputs the final render image for your scene. In this viewer, you can interactively preview changes as you edit parameters. The Composite Viewer outputs the final image after you have applied compositing operators to your render images. In summary, here you have your image with post-production effects. The Motion Effects view shows the motion data after you have applied channel operators. The Geometry Spreadsheet shows attributes values for points, vertices, primitives, or the whole geometry. Let's return to the Scene view, and now let's explore the right top pane. The Parameters tab displays the options and values for a selected node. We could say that it is the interface for a node. The Take List tab lets you create, rename, rearrange, select, and delete takes. The Performance Monitor is a profiler that records events and generates statistical reports so that you can identify performance bottlenecks in your scene. Let's return to the Parameter tab, and now let's explore the right bottom pane. The Network Editor displays the scene data as nodes and networks. Here you can create, move, copy, and edit nodes. Of course, you can also interconnect nodes as networks. The Tree View displays the scene data exactly as a computer's file system, where the folders are like networks and the files are as nodes. The Material Palette lets you assign materials to objects and primitives interactively. The left side shows the contents of gallery files on disk, and the right side shows the materials and shaders that exist in the scene. The Asset Browser allows you to manage assets you have downloaded from the Asset Store. Let's select again the Network Editor. Now, in the Playbar section, we have the timeline and playback controls. We can also manage animation keyframes in the timeline. Finally, the status line section displays status and progress updates as you work. At the right side of this section, we also have simulation options and the cooking controls to set the mode Houdini uses to calculate the scene. Remember, a pane is no more than a container, and it can contain one or more tabs. And a tab is also a container that can display different types of information: scene view, render view, parameters, network view, etc. Each of them displays information in a specific way and has its tools to manage the data. For instance, the scene view displays visual information. Its main component is the 3D scene viewer. It has a toolbox at the left and the display options at the right. It also has the operation controls at the top. Now, why do we need to customize the interface? The answer is easy: to optimize our workflow according to the task we are doing. The default desktop could be okay for modeling, but for animation it is better to have another layout, and for look development we will need a different layout. Houdini ships with some desktop presets. We can find this option in the menu bar at the desktop drop-down menu. The default preset is named Build, and if we click on it, we can find the list of existing desktop presets. Let's select Look Dev. You can see the layout has changed to a disposition optimized for look development. Let's select Output. Now we have another layout optimized for output and manage renders. The existing presets may be enough for you, but at some moment you are going to need a different layout of the elements. That's why you need to learn how to customize the interface according to your specific needs. In the desktop drop-down menu, it is worth mentioning two important options. Reload current desktop. This is useful if you have made unwanted changes to the layout and you want to restore the last saved layout. Save current desktop as. Once you have configured the layout according to your needs, use this option to save it as a preset. A window is displayed to enter a name for the preset. Let's return to the default Build preset. Now, let's check how we can customize the interface. We have the following elements to help us in the customization process. Small black triangles to hide or show elements. The dividers between panes to resize panes. Inside the dividers between panes we have tiny gray triangles to minimize or restore panes. A tiny dotted line to swap panes or flip orientation. White triangles on shelves with a menu to manage shelves. The divider between shelves to resize shelves. White triangles on panes with the Pane tab operations menu. Let's find the small black triangles on the interface. In the main menu bar we can find one. If we click on it, the main menu bar is hidden. If you click again, it is restored. Quite obvious, right? The same in the shelf dock. You click once to hide it and click again to show it. Inside the scene view, we have one on the top left to hide and show the operations controls. Another on the left to hide or show the toolbox, also known as selector and handle controls. And we have another black triangle on the right to hide or restore the display options. In the Playbar, we have another one to hide or show this element. Now, the dividers between panes. Its functionality is quite simple. You drag the divider to resize the panes. Let's restore the build desktop to undo these changes. Now, inside the dividers, we have the tiny gray triangles to minimize or restore panes. In the horizontal divider, we have the first one to minimize the top pane and the second one to minimize the bottom pane. We click on the first one and the top pane is minimized. We click on it again and now the pane is restored. Now, if we click on the second tiny gray triangle, the bottom pane is minimized, and if we click again, the pane is restored. In the vertical divider, we have the same functionality. If we click on the lower tiny gray triangle, the right pane is minimized, and if we click again, the pane is restored. If you pay attention on the left, you have another divider. Let's click on it to restore the minimized pane. There you are, and you can click again on the upper tiny gray triangle to minimize the pane. Inside the dividers, we also have a tiny dotted line at the center. If you click on it, you swap the panes. Now, if you press and hold Alt and now click on the tiny dotted line, the divider flips its orientation. Again, if we hold Alt and click on it, the divider flips again its orientation. Now, let's check the white triangles on the top right on the shelves. If you click on the white triangle on any of the shelves, you have the same menu. Here you have options to manage a shelf set. A shelf set is a set of tabs, and each tab can contain a set of tools. Houdini ships with several shelf sets presets according to the task you're working on. Here we can see the available presets and with a mark the current active preset. Finally, let's check the white triangles on the top right on the panes. You have the same functionality in any of the panes. You can see the same menu in this one, and finally in this one. Once again, remember that a pane is no more than a container, and it can contain one or more tabs. And a tab is also a container that can display different types of information. And the first option makes that, changes the tab type. If you click, you can see all the existing tab types. In this case, the scene view is marked as current. Let's select Tree View. Now, instead of the scene view, we have the tree view on this tab. Let's set another tab type. Let's click on Render View. Now we have the render view. Instead of using this menu, you can directly right-click on the tab name and select the new type. Let's do that, and let's select the scene view. The next two options, Previous Pane tab and Next Pane tab, are just to move from one tab to another. Normally not very useful because it is easier to click on the required tab to display it. The next option, tear off the pane from the tab, while the next one, tear off a copy of the tab. Let's try it. Let's display the Render View tab. Now, in the Pane tab menu, click on Tear off Pane tab copy. A new floating panel is displayed and it contains a pane with a copy of the render view. The original render view is still in its place. Let's close the floating panel. Now let's use the Tear off Pane tab. In this case, the original render view is removed and placed in a floating panel. These options are quite useful if you want to work with multiple monitors. You can lay out the interface of the new floating panel as you wish and then place it on another monitor. Let's close this floating panel. The next option does what it says, it closes a tab. Let's display the performance monitor on the right top pane. Now, let's select the Close Pane tab option. The Performance Monitor tab closes. Another way to close a tab is by directly clicking on the X closing button on any tab. This is easier than using the Pane tab menu. The next option, Maximize the pane. Let's try it. Now you have the same functionality by clicking on the white rectangle located next to the white triangle, and this is easier. The next option does the same as the last option, but only vertically. The next option closes not only all the tabs, but the pane also. In this case, it closes the network editor, the tree view, and the material palette, and the pane. Be careful with this option. The next two options are very useful to split a pane vertically or horizontally. Let's try it. In this pane, let's select the option Split Pane Top button. Now, in the top pane, let's split it by using the Split Pane Left-Right option. Finally, we have some options that let us move the main elements from their original locations to any pane. You can move the main menu, the shelf, the playbar, or the status bar to any pane. Let's try it on this pane. Let's select Move Main Menu here. You can see the main menu or menu bar is now in this pane. Now let's select Move Playbar here. The same, the playbar is now in this pane. Let's also move the status bar here. And let's also move the shelf dock. Additionally, in each pane next to the tabs you can see a plus button. When you click on this button, you have three options. With New Pane tab, you add a copy of the currently displayed tab. In this case, we now have another parameters tab. With New Pane tab type, you add a new tab by selecting the type of tab you want. Let's select the scene view. Now we have a new tab displaying the scene viewer. Let's add another tab displaying the geometry spreadsheet. Finally, if you click the plus button, at the bottom you can select the tab to be currently displayed. Now, let's practice what we have learned so far and configure a custom interface. For instance, to start our learning process, we don't need too many elements. We rather need a simple interface. To start, let's restore the default desktop. Let's select the Build Desktop preset and then select the option Reload Current Desktop to discard any changes we have made. But I've changed my mind. Instead of trying to adapt an existing layout, let's be bold and start from scratch. So let's close all the panes. Let's start by closing the hidden pane at the left. Let's close the left pane. Now let's close the top pane. If I try to close the remaining pane, the program does not allow me. There must be at least one pane in the application. Now let's close the tabs, and we can close all but the last one. So there must be at least one tab in a pane. In regards to the menu bar, the shelf dock and the play bar, you can only hide them but not close them. And the status bar can be neither hidden nor closed. Now that we have a clean interface, let's divide this pane vertically. We go to the pane menu and select Split Pane Left-Right. Now let's divide the right pane vertically using the same option. Finally, let's divide the right pane using the Split Pane Top-Bottom option. Let's lay out the information. In the left pane, right-click on the tab name and select a scene view. In the middle pane, let's put the tree view. Right-click on the tab name and select tree view. In the right panes, in the top one, let's right-click and select the network view. And in the bottom pane, right-click on the tab name and select the parameters. Let's resize the panes by dragging their dividers. Okay, we have finished the configuration. Now we can save this desktop. Let's click on the desktop drop-down menu and choose Save Current Desktop As. A window pops up asking for a desk name. Let's type a name and click on the Save button. A window pops up and shows us the path where our desktop preset was saved. Click the OK button and we are done. We have our first desktop preset saved to be used when needed. If we open again the desktop drop-down menu, we can see that our new preset is displayed in the list. Let's make some changes to the layout. Let's resize the panes and show the toolbox in the scene view. To save the changes, we open the desktop drop-down menu and select Save Current Desktop and click OK. Now, just for fun, let's add the geometry spreadsheet at the bottom of the left pane. In the Pane tab Options menu, we select Split Pane Top Button. Now, in the bottom left pane, right-click on the tab name and select Geometry Spreadsheet. For now, we can minimize this pane. Once again, let's save the desktop by opening the Desktop drop-down menu, selecting Save Current Desktop and clicking OK. Okay, I hope this practice helps you understand a little better how the interface is structured in Houdini and how we can customize the layout. As you can see, Houdini is extremely customizable and the process is easy, even starting from scratch. That concludes this video. In the next one, we'll be starting with navigation in the network view and in the scene view. Well, that's all for now. Thank you for watching this video. I'll see you soon in the next one.